toured that facility, Las Colinas Detention Facility in San Diego. For those of you who have the opportunity to visit it, it is one of the best run jails, maybe the best run jail in the entire United States. Absolutely phenomenal, from the culture, to the physical plant, to the gender responsive and trauma-informed practices that they have. Absolutely phenomenal. Let's jump right in. I have a question for you all. Women who are correctional officers and deputies tend to be the numerical minority and not in as many positions of power as men in the same agency. This can lead women to feel that they have fewer promotional opportunities or that current promotional procedures are unfair. What can be done to change that mindset? Whoever wants to jump in, just jump right on.
I think that's a great question and certainly a fair question. And I believe that one of the things that really needs to happen in order to show individuals that opportunities exist is to demonstrate that. Demonstrate that through the training that's provided, demonstrate it through who goes to the training. You know, sometimes we see the same people over and over again that go to all of the training and have the training opportunities. So I think it's important that, you know, the more women that are in positions of higher authority, the more women know that they can do it, the more men know that they can do it. So I think it's important that it's not just a policy that is written, but it's a policy that's put into action and demonstrated by the training and role modeling that's done and the opportunities that are presented equally. And I think that it has to be a conscious decision to make sure that it's a diverse group that is being provided the opportunities. It's not something that's just going to happen. It's something that needs to be at the forefront. It needs to be a dedicated initiative and have somebody who's watching over to make sure the initiative is being implemented as you want it to be. So I think that there are definitely opportunities to let women know that there's opportunity.
Thanks, Shirley.
I think Shirley's right. It has to be purposeful. So if you're sitting in an initiative, you're sitting in a meeting, and you look to the left and you look to the right, and everybody looks like you need to rethink. And so I can give you an example. I went to a gang seminar with California Department of Corrections. There was about 300 people who were gang investigators with CDCR at the time, California Corrections. And if they looked to the left and they looked to the right, between the whole group of these 300 people, they didn't have 7 hairs on their heads, right? They were primarily bald, primarily Caucasian, and that's how, and they were all men. There were 2 women there, and the women were taking notes and running things. So I think a purposeful understanding about who's doing what. Are we diverse? Are we looking at different initiatives? The other question is, what do you have people doing for you? If you're probably, most of the people in here are supervisors and managers. Are the ones arranging the potlucks, and the men's are the ones doing the tactical stuff? And that's just the kind of thing you have to look at. You know, are you giving diverse opportunity? And if you're a woman, you have to be willing to say, you know what, boss, I don't want to plan the potluck. I really would like to go be part of this new cell extraction protocol that we're putting together. And so making sure that it's a purposeful action, that you're really questioning your own decisions about who you're selecting to do the jobs, making sure that there's a broad understanding about when tests are coming available and how to get on lists, because almost everybody in here is a civil servant, and really challenging folks to come out of their own. And I don't care, I'm going to be honest with you, you'll hear me see this many times today. It doesn't matter to me if the equity issue is a man issue, a woman issue, a issue of color. It's everybody feel like they have a seat at the table. And when they get to the table, is there somebody sitting at the table that looks a little bit like them so that they feel safe? And if somebody doesn't look like them, do the people that don't look like them make them feel included? And what they say matters.
Very good, thank you, Terry.
Terry's word was purposeful. The word that I had written down this morning, prepping for this, was intentional. My agency is the most diverse agency in metro government. There was a study several years to support that. when I started looking at our numbers in preparation to chair the committee, I pulled the numbers, and Terry's right. There's a lot of people in our upper management that look like me. That our diversity is one of the cornerstones of our mission statement. We strive to meet that every day. And then, as good as we are, and as good as we think we are, then I started looking at other factors. And what I found is where we're really good in top level management, I look down a level and we're not as good as there. Okay, and recognizing that, so bringing that up and paying attention to it and making it intentional, that we will make an effort to level that playing field as well. Because who's going to be in charge when those top level managers, who are very diverse, walk out the door? It's those people that are in those mid positions now. So it's taking the time to develop those resources and intentionally developing those resources, going out and recruiting. And it's not about being a token. I don't care about being the token. Okay, I don't want to be the token female at the table. It's about having a choice of qualified individuals, and how do you make those individuals qualified? As you seek them out, send them to training. Sometimes you believe in them when they don't believe in themselves. You put them in those opportunities, whether it be training, whether it be projects, until they get that confidence in themselves. That's what people did for me, and then now it's my turn to turn around and do that for someone else.
Outstanding.
Well, I have to echo everything these wonderful women just said. I think, like she just mentioned, diversity is one of the core values on my department, and we do have a very diverse department, but at times through the ranks, the diversity is not as strong as it is down at the lower level. And I think being able to properly recruit for an agency as large as we are, diversity is important, and making sure that we have that throughout the ranks, and always helping our folks understand that there is room at the table for them, and making sure that everyone feels a part of the department and not just being the token person like she mentioned, because I also don't want to be the token person at the table or the one planning the holiday parties. And so showing our troops that we are there to provide them the resources and the tools to be just as competitive as our partners is what's important to me.
I recall a song by James Brown where he said, "I don't want nobody giving me nothing. Open the door and I'll get it myself." And I think that's exactly what it is, right? We need to have the door open for equity and inclusion. And I have experienced that as an African American man during my career as well. Here's a question that I have for you all. With everything that's going on in jails across the country, from mental health crisis to opioid to staffing shortages, why do you think sheriffs, jail administrators, and directors of correction should care about gender equality? Why should that be a priority as well?
I actually sat down and talked to my undersheriff before I came out here and asked him that question. And I wanted to be able to represent what our agency thought about gender equality, and what his response was that we want to be able to provide to our community and be able to understand our community by ensuring that our department was diverse, and having women on our department and having women leaders within our agency allows us to better connect with our community. San Diego is a very diverse county, and ensuring that our entire agency is a reflection of our community is what's important to our leaders.
Thank you.
Erica took all my answers.
You don't get to say that this morning, Marcia.
The look left and look right, I took that away from a presentation that you had given before. And that's one thing that I look at the American Jail Association, My agency, and we don't believe in diversity as just a race issue or just a gender issue, but it's also people who think differently. Any kind of difference, you know, we have a thought in our agency that if somebody wants to volunteer, somebody wants to give of their time, of their talents, we don't say no. Because we want to make sure that the community at large knows that we're there for them. And there's no way to show that if they don't feel welcome, if they don't feel like that they have a connection with somebody in the agency. And sometimes that's what it takes is, you know, the person that looks like them or the person that thinks like them. You know, there's no way that we could do all the great things that we do at our agency if everybody thought the same way. You know, we have some pretty heated discussions sometimes. We don't always agree. You know, I've sat in meetings with people who are sunshine and rainbows and butterflies and let's save everybody in the world, and you're trying to balance that with correctional practice, and you know, and if everybody thought lock them down, self-searches and all that, we'd never rehabilitate anyone. And that's our goal. Our goal is to send offenders back out in the community better than they were when they came in.
You're talking about gender equity, not just for officers, but for inmates as well.
Gender responsive issues, you know, there is not a program that's going to reach everyone. There's no cookie cutter approach to anything in corrections, despite, you know, our need to write standard procedures, standard policy. You know, everything that we do has to be individuals. I want to be treated like an individual. I want my needs met. I don't want a cookie cutter approach to everyone else. So why wouldn't the staff feel the same way? Why wouldn't they need flexibility? Why wouldn't they need consideration based on their needs, not mine? I can't speak for every female. I can't speak for every staff member. But I need to take their needs into consideration. Well, dealing with inmates is not inmate behavior versus staff behavior. It's human behavior. So why don't the inmates need things that are tailored towards their needs? There's no one program that's going to solve every inmate's needs. You know, some will need housing, some will need assistance with children, some will need medication upon release, some will need to be handed off to a treatment center. Everything is so person-oriented, and unless you take that approach, you're not going to make a difference in the world.
Thank you. Terry, could you talk about efforts to change gender equity when it comes to women that are in custody as well, and the work that you know that's being done in that regard across the country? It's an issue that's beginning to have more eyes on. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, and there's some experts in this room. Karen Dalton, I saw Andy Moss roaming around. The understanding that women are different, I don't think anybody's shocked by that, right? I mean, I don't think anybody in this room is going to say an aha moment that we need to treat female inmates differently than we do male inmates, because women have different needs. And so, for example, I'll use California Corrections. They would do a women's program for cosmetology. And that was, everybody thought that was great. We're doing this women's program for cosmetology. You go inside the program, the women were all dolled up, hair everywhere, eyebrows all done. But when the women left, they couldn't get a job, right? And so understanding that women need to be able to have living wage jobs upon release, understanding that women come to a pathway in detention that is largely different than men. They bring an enormous amount of trauma to the table. If you look at young women in the juvenile justice system, the vast majority of them have been sexually molested at very young ages. Start young for long duration. And so understanding that when women come into detention, right, they bring that trauma, that pain, that distrust, that hypersexualization, and that going out, you're not going to be able to give them a stenographer class and they're going to be able to go get a living wage job. You know, women, you know this, I'm telling you what you already know, they don't get visitors, right? They just don't. They are disconnected from the community when they come into detention, and understanding how to reconnect. But if you see all of the lens through the male management, because that's 90% of your population in almost every jurisdiction, I suspect. So you focus so much energy on men, when really if you take a minute to say, wait a minute, are female inmates different? What pathway brings them here? What services do they need while they're here? What specialized training do the staff need? I will tell you, the vast majority of male officers don't like to work with female prisoners. Is that true? Right? Because
Anybody disagree with that?
is that true? I don't want to work with women, right? They're needy, right? They're needy. Well, they have needs. Female inmates have needs. And the question is, how do you transform your system to understand those needs? How do you, and that's a public safety initiative, right? A thing that understands the needs of inmates while they're in our stead, right? Understanding their needs, addressing those needs. When they get out, you get fewer victims. And if you really could see the connection point between female inmates and homelessness and DCFS and children that teen pregnancy, there's a lot of connection points that if you really could do a gender responsive approach, truly do a gender responsive approach, the women's outcomes are amazing with that kind of strategy. And there's plenty of research around this now. I'm not cutting edge conversation here. And I see National Institution of Justice is here. You know, knock on somebody's door, introduce yourself, find out what's going on nationally, and join the party.